Can you see me? Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make noodles. First, you just crack your egg. That's 1, 2. And the general rule is that you want to have 1 egg for every 2 people that you're feeding. So 3 eggs is going to feed 6 people. Crack your eggs, you stir them up. And then we're just going to add flour. And then you cook all of this in broth. So the amount of flour you need is essentially all that you can get in there. So, and yeah, I'm pretty messy here. So you want to just stir in your flour. It starts to make a paste. What you're trying to get is like a dough form. And just keep stirring in your flour. And again, as much flour as you can work into this egg is what you want. Okay, so at this point I've worked in quite a bit of flour. I'm just going to, you can see where I have a ball of dough-like consistency here. And I'm going to keep working flour into these noodles. Again, these are very common in my family. They're a holiday favorite. Doesn't get much better than Grandma's noodles, so hopefully I'm doing her some justice here. So we just roll this flour in, keep pressing in the flour, as much flour as you can get into these eggs. And just knead it out. And once it gets to where you have absolutely no stickiness left, if there's any stickiness, that's when you know that you can still get more flour into it. When you get to the point you can't get any more stickiness, then we're going to roll them out, cut them into noodles. Okay, so once you've got all the flour worked into here as much as you can, you take your rolling pin and you want to roll these out. You actually want them fairly thin. Probably not as thin as an angel hair pasta, but not as thick as a dumpling or anything like that. You might have to split up the dough because it might be too much to work with at one time. So just split that up and just roll them out. And again, if there's any sort of stickiness to them, you want to add some more flour to dry them. Okay, so I've rolled out these noodles very thin. You can see about this much thickness. So once we've rolled it out like this, there's a couple of ways to actually make the noodles. I have a herb mincer that I use. You can get these at Bed Bath & Beyond or local kitchen store. And I just run them across like this. And then you just need to pull apart the noodles. Okay, so if you don't have a noodle cutter, what you can do is use a knife. And what I've done here is just roll these up like this. And then you just cut them real thin. Probably shouldn't do that on my counter, but oh well. And then you unroll the little circle things and you have your noodle. So either way, the easiest way is to do it with the herb mincer. Okay, so we've already cut our noodles and now we need to separate them. Just pull them apart here. There are a couple different schools of thought. There's those that throw them in the broth moist and some that dry them. Either way works. Okay, so right here I got about 4 cups of broth. The key to a good noodle is broth, very good broth. I make mine with pork and vegetables in the pressure cooker, but you can use the canned kind, and then a stick of butter. So you put your stick of butter in the broth, and the key to noodles as well as the taste of the broth is that you want the broth to be boiling. You can't put your noodles in there until the broth is boiling. So, okay, once you have your broth boiling with your butter in there, you want to slowly add noodles. But each time you add the noodles, you want to kind of pull them apart here, and then you want to stir until it comes back to a boil. Because if you put them all in at the same time, they're going to be very clumpy. So this is the slowest part of the process. You're just slowly going to add them a little bit at a time. And if you make lots of extra noodles and you don't need all of them, you can freeze them. and then you can use them at a later time. So, especially since they make such a mess when you make them, if you want to make a lot at one time, you can. And you would follow the same process, except they would be frozen when you put them in here, so you would just wait until the broth boiled. Okay, Ashley. Okay, so what I've got here is I've added all my noodles, and then what you want to do is keep stirring. Do not leave the pan or else all of this will stick. But you want to keep stirring and let them thicken. So these aren't quite thick enough. When they get to the right consistency, they'll be like a thick gravy. And you just stir and stir. You just stand over this pot and you stir until they're thick. At this point, if you wanted to get fancy or have fun, you could add meat or you could add vegetables. I know my family in the Midwest is going to scream when they hear that I add vegetables to my noodles, but it's still really good. So you stir these up really well, and then you can serve them over mashed potatoes if you like, or what I tend to do is serve them over meat with cheese on top, which is very yummy. Or you can just eat them by the bowl. Okay, so I had stirred these until they had thickened, and then I let them rest for about 10 minutes. And you can see here's about the thickness that you want them. You can see this here. That's about the thickness that you want them. And then you're good. And I put a lot of salt in the broth when I made it, but you'll want to salt them to taste when you put them on the table or when you get ready to serve them. And you should look like this, and your kitchen should be a mess when you're done. And if you're not, then okay, whatever. That's it. That's noodles.